we'll now transition into tomorrow's football game, and that's the college football playoff national championship game. To start, I think it's an accomplishment we're even here with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has just ravaged college football at times. There's inconsistency in terms of how many games teams have played all year, but they got a college football playoff, the Final Four. They played. It was the Rose Bowl at AT&T Stadium in Jerry's World, but it happened. And now a national championship and a game that even if it was a normal year, you could have predicted happening. Alabama and Ohio State, two powerhouse college football teams that have been for this past decade. You have Nick Saban looking for his 7th national championship all time, which if he does win, will pass Bear Bryant in terms of the most championships, won by a coach all time in college football. So a lot for stakes for him. And you have on the other side in terms of coaching, Ryan Day of Ohio State, and a relatively young coach in his 40s looking to be the second youngest coach in college football history to win a national championship game. So a lot up for grabs. This game, like I said, with this season with COVID, there was some COVID scares earlier on, but it will happen tomorrow night, 8 p.m. ESPN at Hard Rock Stadium. And there's a lot of aspects to look at this game, not only for just an NFL perspective, with Justin Fields being, I guess his draft stock really rising with last game, but also some defensive pieces on both teams. I'll be interested because hopefully it's the last game Devontae Smith plays before he's a New York Giant. But besides that, it's going to be probably the best talent in college football in terms of Alabama and Ohio State, which is a perennial, as I mentioned, powerhouse, beating Clemson. And I think these two teams, even though Ohio State only played 7 games and are 7-0 and Bama 12-0, these were the two best teams in college football this year, even though Ohio State got off to a rough start. And Bama throughout has been the number one team in college football. If you look at their last games, which I know we went over last week, but just to rehash it, Bama, a 31-14 win over Notre Dame, 4 touchdowns, 296 yards for Mac Jones, and Devontae Smith, who is now the Heisman Trophy winner, 7 catches for 133 touchdowns, an unbelievable game for him that didn't even factor into his Heisman candidacy, but was an amazing game on a national stage. And then you look at Ohio State, they beat Clemson 49-28, had 35 points at halftime, and Justin Fields had 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. And Trey Sermon was preaching all over the place with 193 yards and a touchdown. So both those teams really just dominated. And I know, we joked last week that, hey, Notre Dame covered, so good teams win, but great teams covered. But that game between Bama and Notre Dame was really over by the first quarter's end. And now in terms of this game, looking at it, I think there's really only one big storyline. People will throw out to you that there's a lot of aspects to this game, and there are to every football game. But the one key component to this game is just Justin Fields, in my opinion. He has to play like he did versus Clemson. Worldly. An amazing game. He has been inconsistent this year, especially in the Big Ten Championship, did not look like a great quarterback, and then looked like he was better than Lawrence when he played his team versus Clemson. That's all this game predicates on, because Bama's going to score their points. They're just too good not to, even if they get off to a slow start, even if they make turnovers early in the game. They are a talented offense, and their defense, actually, for the first time in forever, even though it is immensely talented, is probably the weaker of the two units, which is never the case for an SEC team, but is this year. So this has to be, in my opinion, 1, Justin Fields' game, and 2, a track meet. The over-under on this game is 75.5, and that number doesn't look like it's going to be hard to reach. Ohio State needs to come out and outscore Alabama, and that's the simple thing of it. It has to be a track meet. It has to be a game where maybe 1 or 2 turnovers or a big mistake is the factor, and there aren't, that's it. And maybe the team that gets the ball last will be the team that wins. That's the kind of game Ohio State has to play, because if they don't, I think Bama will have an easy time with Ohio State. And again, it's all the Fields. And you don't like to, maybe it's basic analysis, putting all the pressure and the importance on one player, and especially that being the quarterback. But Justin Fields has to come out and play a great game. You look at Ohio State's, and I know it's a shorter season, but you look at their previous 7 games. They get off to slow starts. Fields not playing well. He throws an interception. It affects the defense as well. And you can't make a mistake, even though Fields is pretty much guaranteed an interception a game versus this Alabama team. They're going to beat you. So Fields needs to play a perfect game. And the reason I'm saying this is because he did that versus Clemson. He did. That was a perfect game by every measure you could look at it. It was an amazing performance. And could it be replicated versus Alabama? That's remained to be seen. But I think that's the key to this game. Maybe, Brennan, you have a different perspective. Maybe you think Bama's special teams are really going to be the difference in this one. I don't know. But definitely want to get your guys' thoughts. And then after that, we'll give our predictions in this game. It's an 8.5-point spread. Alabama's the favorite. But again, I think maybe a close game, especially if Justin Fields plays well.
Now, John, you know that I'm a special teams guy.
Yeah.
And I do believe special teams can win you games on its own. But I don't think it's going to be the special teams that make the difference. I think it's going to be the fact that Alabama is superior at almost every position that's going to make the difference. Let's just take a look at the awards that Alabama has already won this year. Mac Jones, best quarterback in college football. Alex Leatherwood, best interior lineman in college football. He won the Outland Trophy. Devonta Smith, the best wide receiver in college football, winning the Biletnikoff. Landon Dickerson, the best center in college football, won the Remington. Let's see, Walter Camp, Player of the Year. That goes to Devonta Smith as well. Najee Harris won the best running back in college football, the Doak Walker Award. Devonta Smith won the Maxwell Award for being the most outstanding player in college football. Let's see. So that's the center, the interior lineman, the running back, the quarterback, and the wide receiver. Number ones have all won awards for being the best at their position. And then, hey, why not to throw it on there? The Patrick Mannelly Award for the best long snapper in college football as well. So really, the special teams are going to play a factor. Obviously, best long snapper in college football. And then, of course, we can't forget to mention the Heisman Trophy going to Devonta Smith as well. They're better on the offensive side of the ball than not just Ohio State, but better than every single team that is playing Division I college football this season. Alabama is just vastly superior on the offensive side of the ball. It doesn't really matter what the defense can do when your offense can score pretty much at will. I get it, the Big Ten is a defensive conference. They play a lot of games that are low scoring. It's not going to be this game. The over-under started at 76. I'm not sure what it's at now. I'm not going to speculate where the number has gone, but it's the highest opening for a national championship game in the history of national championship games. The game is going to be high scoring, and the team with the better offense is going to win, and the team with the better offense is Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's smart to say that tomorrow Alabama will win the best team in college football award by beating Ohio State tomorrow night. I think that's definitely the smart thing to say. You know, Ohio State, it was such an odd year for them, especially really not playing that many games. Dabo Swinney didn't think they were that good. We all remember that, and he definitely had to eat his words on that one. And now, you know, they're going to have to play Alabama, which is going to be very, very difficult for them to win. And not just them, really any team in the league. You mentioned how great they are, all the awards they've won. Is definitely for a reason. This is an Alabama team I feel like we've seen, not the specific one, but many times in the past, the team that is really, really good and probably a lot better than every other team in college football.
So those are our thoughts. And just to get my pick in, because pretty much Brennan and Dan sort of said who they're going to go with, I'm going to pick Bama too. I think it may be closer than maybe people think, but I still think it's going to be a two-possession game. Bama is just that much better. And I gave out the formula to what I think Ohio State has to do. And does Justin Fields have another game like he played against Clemson in him? That's remained to be seen, and hopefully for Ohio State fans, that's the case for Justin Fields. But if not, it will be an Alabama national championship and the 7th all-time for Nick Saban as a head coach